and welcome to Impact 2024, our continuing conversation where we talk about all types of topics, current events. We talk about things that are, recent in the news, talk about things of race, religion, every possible topic that you could want to talk about, you have the ability to talk about here. And the way that you do that is by typing in your questions and your comments into the comment sections, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. You have the ability to go ahead and type in the questions that you have about a topic that we are discussing, or even be a part of the conversation. Type in the comments and opinions that you may have, and you want to further the discussion with the bit that you want to put in as well. So we always encourage that. As always, I like to welcome people. Like to run into the topic. As you may be able to tell if you've been here before, voice does not sound great. So we may not be here long, fortunately. Our guest to bump to the next week. So we'll do what we can do. So we'll keep it going as long as we can go. And if for some reason my voice gives out, then we'll be done for the day. Unless y'all want to do a bunch of comments and read them yourself. So anyway, it's funny because last week we talked about COVID, and then and it's 4-year anniversary basically. This is the 4th year, and I feel like I got hit by COVID right now. So yeah, all right. Let's go right into it. And keeping in the theme of the 2024, 2020, it's 4 years away from COVID, 4 years basically away from we had our great movement of Black Lives Matter and things such as that. And then those times and moments. And one of the big moves during that time was a move and a shift towards criminal justice reform. And so if you've been watching the news, if you've been paying attention to what's been going on locally in a lot of places, a lot of the things or the advances that we thought we had made in 2020 have started to be rolled back. One of the primary ones that people have been talking about is the DE&I efforts, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Those jobs have been disappearing. Those departments have been dismantled. Those initiatives have been going away. And it's even going further than the DEI that was advanced and put into place in 2020. The idea in 2020, according to many, is that they wanted to put in these initiatives, these diversity groups, these equity groups, as a response to some of the action that was going on. As a response to some of the actions that were going on during the Black Lives Matter movement, during some of the social unrest that was going on, as we paid attention and people were realizing that there was inequities going on. But yet, as a result, many organizations and businesses said that they were going to dedicate time, dedicate space, dedicate resources in order to give people an opportunity to evaluate hiring practices, evaluate how their populations looked, evaluate how some of their businesses were run, or governments were run, or schools were run, and making sure that they concentrated on diversity, making sure that they concentrated on equity, and making sure that they concentrated on including other people. And why was that important? There was a business standpoint, a business reason, not only just a social reason. From the social aspect, many people thought it's the right thing to do. The second part of not only thinking it's the right thing to do was it looked good. You said back here when you said, we're dedicated to, we sell, cereal, but we're dedicated to making sure that when we sell our cereal, that we're going to be someone who's socially conscious. So it looked good. But from a business standpoint, it made more sense. If you have people and you include more people into your corporation, into your decision making, then you can also touch more people when you put your product out there. We've talked about this in previous times. If you make a product and you don't have any women in the room, then you are going to have a tough time appealing to women as your customers or women as your base. If you are a lawyer in a law firm and you want people to come in, it would behoove you to maybe have some women who were lawyers as well in your firm. And so people realized that from a functional standpoint, from a financial standpoint, it made sense all the way around. Well, unfortunately, there was the backlash. There was the give back from 2020, and the give back is now to break that kind of stuff down, break down diversity, equity, and inclusion. But that's not what we're primarily focused on today. The one that we're focusing on today, though, is criminal justice rollbacks. And so now, over the last year or so, they've been rolling back some of the advances that they made in criminal justice. Now, these are controversial because some of the advances in criminal justice, some of them are debatable. So in some places and locales, they decided that certain crimes they're not going to prosecute because it was disproportionately tilted towards people of color, arresting people of color, or harassing people of color, or prosecuting people of color. And so some of the crimes that they used to prosecute, they said we're not going to prosecute those as much anymore because of the disproportionate people who get affected by them. Or some of the crimes that affected those who are without financial resources. Those are in different socioeconomic categories. They said, well, we're not going to prosecute those crimes, or we're not going to pursue those crimes as much anymore for the reason that they're the nonviolent criminal activity or whatever the rationale and the reason was, they were going to prosecute crimes less. Many of the states decided that they were not going to prosecute marijuana charges anymore. Some of them decided that lower level or other drug charges they weren't going to prosecute anymore. Many states decided that prostitution wasn't going to be a crime that they were going to go for anymore, or to really go out and try to go after anymore. And the reason and rationale being there is because they believe a lot of those individuals who are in prostitution are victims themselves, and they are not. You should not go after the participants as the criminals, but more so the individuals who are running those rings or running those operations. And that's the criminal justice reform went towards, is a change in how we looked at crime, what crimes to prosecute, and how they prosecute. And so a lot of lower level crimes, you don't even get to go into jail anymore. We're not going to just hold you and do things like that. But there were a number of different reasons why that was important. One of them was the social aspect. Two was the racial disparity. Three, it was the economic impact. At the end of the day, we don't have unlimited spaces in these jails, and they're filling up. Not the prisons, but we're saying the jails. You can't just stick people in jail all the time, waiting to get a trial or waiting to do this or waiting to do that. It was getting ridiculous. But now, what has recently been reported, what's recently been shown, is that some of these locales, some of these states are now rolling back the rollbacks. And so crime, as they see it, and depending on what area you're in, has ticked up. And so they realize, or they've come to the conclusion that now we need to re-prosecute. And so lower level crimes of stealing, that's one of the bigger ones. And this is not more so some of the locales, but it's in conjunction with the locales and the businesses that there have been problems with theft. And lower level theft wasn't being prosecuted as much. They were saying, well, we're just going to be a slap on the wrist. We're not going to arrest people. We're not going to put people into the system because you went and stole, some chewing gum, or you went and stole a pair of sneakers. If it wasn't a felony, we're rolling back our efforts towards prosecuting these lower level crimes. And depending on who you talk to, especially with these stores, depending on who you talk to in the stores, as a result, some of the theft went up. When you looked in the big scale in the big businesses, when you had like Targets and the Walmarts and the Home Depots, they started reporting these astronomically large numbers of theft, of shrink that has been going on because of the last couple of years of not prosecuting these crimes. You hear stories about waves of people going into stores in a mass, in a group, especially out in the West Coast. You get 100 kids running to the store and they just steal stuff and then run out. You can't prosecute all of them, and it's been a flash mob of stealing. And so the perception has then become, all right, criminals are out here just causing trouble and mischief, and we have to roll back to one of the previous ways that we used to do things, or the prosecute all of these crimes instead of letting the small ones come. There's a theory, and it's the broken glass theory. It was used in New York, and it was used in New York City when New York City was in disarray, as they say, back in the late 70s and early 80s. And what was used was in the broken glass theory, and that predated New York. But the broken glass theory that was used was, if you prosecute small crimes, if you don't let small stuff go, like littering, or you don't let small stuff go, like a broken glass, then you'll be able to clean up a situation. But if you do let small things go, like a broken glass in a building, the next thing you know, somebody will see that the glass is broken, and so then there's no respect for the building, and then we can do crimes and everything like that. And so the broken glass theory basically is like, you need to tend to the small stuff in order that the bigger stuff doesn't get out of control. And that's how you clean up something. That's how you clean up a situation. If you went into a school that they say was a bad school, they had bad test scores, they had bad, just bad language and activities in the hallway and all this stuff, first thing you do is you make sure you clean up all the graffiti around the school, make the school look nice. And if a kid drops something on the ground, like you drop some paper or something like that, you make them clean it up. And if they don't, you punish them. That's the first way to start to get people to have to get the school together. That's the belief behind the broken glass theory. A lot of roundabout talking here, but basically that's where we are now, and that is the conversation point where we are now. On the one end, you had these great thoughts of, look, we don't need to prosecute these lower level crimes and these smaller crimes because they're disproportionately against people who are poor or bad economic situations, or difficult economic situations, and they're disproportionately against people of color, Black and brown people. And then on the other side, you have, all right, if we let these smaller crimes go, now we're letting lawlessness go. We're letting, we're letting it fester and grow up. And so that's been the move. Here's the thing. This has not only been going on in the government, it's also been a debate in our schools. And if you talk to some teachers, as I have, you'll see the same thing going on in the schools, where they're saying they've let stuff go. They let cussing go. So now kids be walking around school just cussing, doing whatever. You're not going to get it. In my day, I talk like an old man. In my day, I got expelled. You would get expelled for that, suspended or expelled if you came out there cursing, saying bad language. Or if you get into a fight, you're not getting suspended. Or if you're not doing your work, they're passing you along. And again, some of this is some of this COVID stuff. But you're not getting punished because of the activities that you do. And in the schools, some people are saying that now the kids are acting up because there's no punishment or repercussions. And so that puts us in this weird position of, in the same thing with the schools. Exact same thing. They were over punishing people of color in schools, making sure that they were, some of those students were being treated harshly. They were bringing in cops and doing things like that for Black and brown children, and really punishing them with a heavy hand. But then on the opposite side, you take away some of that punishment, and you see that, well, the schools are getting out of hand. So the underlying question of what we're talking about, it is, as people of faith, when we sit here and we think about, spare the rod, spoil the child. Where do we come into play on this? What do we think? Because many of us, especially if you're somebody of faith, you're looking at discipline, you're looking at order, you're looking at sacrifice, you're looking at many of the themes that you see in the Bible. You need to be able to follow the rules. You need to be able to more so keep yourself in line. And it's all about, the Bible is full of rules, full of things that we need to follow, full of requirements that we need to reach. And if again, we spoiling children or spoiling even ourselves. So where does it come to when it comes to discipline, or it comes to laws, and it comes to rules, and it comes to prosecution? What do we need to do to stay safe? And then at the same time, on the opposite end, where does it come to when we know that things are unequitable, when they're unfair? Where does it come to when we know that people are being treated disproportionately poorly? What should happen? Now, should the rules be rolled back? Now, I'll give you a personal one, and I've talked about this before here as well. I'll give you a personal one. And I have sat back and watched as they rolled back the prosecution of marijuana crimes, and when you look at the statistics, and I can only talk about here in Virginia, but when you look at the statistics here in Virginia, it is clear and evident that the prosecution of people when it came to marijuana was significantly disproportionately used as a tool against Black people of color, Black people specifically. Those crimes, those charges, the amount of charges, the amount of time that people were getting, it was used as a weapon against people of color. And so here in Virginia, they want to decriminalize marijuana. Absolutely. And then on one hand, you look at it and you're like, man, that's absolutely great. Because you're abusing it and you're using it wrong. But then on the opposite side, and again, I've talked about this and I'll continue to talk about this. Now you have a situation where where marijuana is widely used, and it's more difficult to go and enjoy life if you're not a participant. Can't take your kids to the park without smelling it everywhere. Can't go to a sporting event without smelling it everywhere. And it's not, okay, I just smell it. Man, that's you being petty, you just smell it. But this is a drug that you can, as they say, catch a contact high. You can catch a headache by being around the potent smoke and things like that. And so on the one end, I don't want people of color to get overly prosecuted, but then on the other end, like I've lost out on some of my freedoms and some of my ability to go do things, and other people to do things with your family and friends if you don't want to partake in those activities. And so it's where's the balance? And so that's where it comes into play. Where's the balance? Should we be sitting back here and just, all right, we got to take the sacrifice and take the L? Businesses, everyone, we just need to look, there's going to be people who steal. There are going to be these lower level crimes. There are going to be some things that go on and happen. But as long as they're nonviolent and they're small, we should be able to let them go. We should be able to have that sacrifice because our justice system is overly aggressive towards people of color, overly aggressive towards people who are in poor economic situations. And so that's the sacrifice that we have to make. Or should it be that our primary job and goal is to protect people or protect businesses or protect whatever, and make sure, and we just have to do our best to make sure that the justice system is not tilted towards people of color and towards people in poor economic situations. And that's the battle, and that's the job. So right now they're rolling back. They're rolling back the laws. They're rolling back the rules. They're rolling back the regulations that they had that eased up on some of the prosecution of criminal activity. And so now they're going back to it. And so they in an optimistic way and in a way of people who are looking at this in a manner that's going to be, opened eyes. You just say, well, they're trying to find that correct balance. But those who were a little bit more skepticism are saying, no, this is DE&I all over again. This is the pendulum swinging back and going back to prosecuting people of color unfairly, unjustly, and going back to prosecuting people who are in the lower economic situations unjustly and unfairly. Going back to that situation, because that's where we feel more comfortable and that's where we feel more safe. And as people oftentimes, those people who get unfairly prosecuted are just casualties of life. And so that's where we are. All right. Well, I know that one was kind of weird. No comments, but it's that's where we are. Consider what's going on out here. Consider the changes that we're having, and consider the fact that you know some of these things are changing. Some of these advances that we made and we thought were so good, or people thought were so good, are now changing. Um, we do have a comment. The problem is not necessarily the laws or rules. It is people who are racist and look to go after people of color or people with certain sexual orientation. Yeah, that's always been the problem, and I think that's the problem now is that the law um, has always been used as a weapon against certain people. And so when you give people power to prosecute, when you give people power to arrest, they're going to use it as a weapon against those who they don't like or they don't feel okay with. And it's a difficult task to sit back here and to make sure that that's not being done. It's a difficult task to sit back and give people power to arrest and give people power to prosecute and make sure that they're not going to use or abuse that thing in a manner. They're going to use and abuse it in a manner that's going to harm certain segments of people. As you said, it used to be just people of color. It used to be just black people for the most part. Be real. There were some other groups every now and then, but the majority was black. Then started getting black and brown, really kind of getting on everybody. And now black and brown, and then this the people whose sexual orientation doesn't align with your personal views. And so they're really coming at all of these groups now. And then it's always been the one group, whether no matter the color, the sexual orientation, whatever. And that's poor. That's people, who don't have a lot. They're always gonna come against them. And so that's what the law's been used for. And I think it's a shame. We have to make certain that that's not going to be, what happens. And so whoever side you are on, we just need to fight to make sure that even if the rules get rolled back, that they don't get rolled back in a manner that people of certain groups are going to get abused at a higher rate, because it has gone down. The crimes that the unfair prosecution of people of color for certain crimes has gone down because they took away some of these minor offenses that they were just using to harass folks. All right. All right. Well, hopefully you will join us next week. We should the next 3 weeks we have guests lined up for opportunities to come out and really give their opinion. So please join us and have your comments and everything ready then, because we will have our guests coming in with their opinions. As always, Thursday Thirst, come in here at 7:00, same place, Facebook and YouTube. Sundays, please come in and join us as well for an opportunity for Sunday worship. That's at 10:00, Facebook, YouTube, and in person, of course. And then as always at 7:00 on Tuesdays, we have prayer from 7 to 7:45. And if you're still around, join us for Impact 2024. I appreciate everybody who came out, all your comments. One more we're going to hit real quick. Little Johnny gets stopped for speeding and he gets a warning. Raheem and Jose get caught for speeding. They go to jail. Oh, absolutely. That's the whole thing right there. That's the whole thing right there. Here in Virginia, it was even the speeding, but they also used to use the what do you call those things? The inspection stickers. They used to use inspection stickers to stop people. And so if you were Raheem or Jose, and you had a bad inspection sticker, boom, I'm gonna pull you over and I'm gonna find out whatever other stuff I can find, or I can harass you. They took that off the table. And I hope they never bring that back from the table. They took that off the table in the sense of it can't be a primary offense, so they can't pull you for a inspection sticker. And that's one of the advances that I think actually made a positive difference. Because when you're using something silly like inspection stickers to be able to pull people, harass people, that there's I don't think there's any justification behind that. Inspection stickers is not a crime. Um, Having an expired inspection sticker is not a crime that needs to be prosecuted, or is, it was just a tool used for harassment. And so yeah, Raheem and Jose was getting harassed from that kind of stuff. And so that's what we got to make sure is that it gets, if there is something that is so petty that's just being used as a weapon, eliminate it. And can't roll that back. We can't let that come back. All right. The comments came in at the end, so I appreciate them. All right. Well, thank you, and please feel free to join us again.